I'm Keanu Smith, and this is Clutch Sports. Week 13 of college football was quite interesting, if I do say so myself. As college football season starts to wind down, we see many teams fighting to the finish and others waving the white flag. So let's get into it. Our Clemson Tigers defeated those Cocks 16-7. In my personal opinion, this game was terrible. Yes, I am happy that the Clemson Tigers won. However, both offenses for the Tigers and the Gamecocks were hard to watch. To start off with Clemson, they did not score a single touchdown. Cade Klubnik stuck up the field, completing 15 of his 27 passes for 100 yards and 1 interception. The one bright side of this Saturday night performance is he carried the ball 11 times for 52 yards on the night. Phil Maffa once again proved that he should be the #1 running back. He carried the ball 19 times for 89 yards. Will Shipley was just as efficient on the ground, rushing for 15 carries and 80 yards. Through the air, not one receiver had more than 5 receptions, nor were any of them over 50 yards. There were a ton of drops, and it made me sick to my stomach. What a terrible way to end the regular season. But moving on to those noisy Gamecocks, Spencer Rattler completed 50% of his passes for 112 yards and 1 interception. The Clemson Tigers defense made it very tough on his receivers. Needless to say, no one on the Gamecocks did much of anything either. Next on the agenda, Michigan and Ohio State. What a game! Michigan walks away with the dub, 30-24. They said they don't need Jim Harbaugh. J.J. McCarthy did not throw the ball around much. However, he did have an efficient game, completing 16 out of his 20 passes. He threw for 148 yards and 1 touchdown. As running back, Blake Corum ran the ball 22 times for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Colston Loveland caught 5 receptions for 88 yards. But what a dynamic day. Moving on to the Ohio State. They lost their first game of the season, knocking them out of the playoff contentions. Kyle McCord completed 18 of his 30 passes for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. The highlight of their offense is no other than Marvin Harrison Jr. himself, catching 5 receptions for 118 yards and 1 touchdown will get you drafted in the first round. Moving on to the Alabama and Auburn game. This game was must-see TV. This game had me in tears. To see Alabama come out on top 27-24 in a wild finish is mind-blowing. Auburn QB Peyton Thorne didn't even look like a quarterback. He was 5 for 16 on the night, throwing for 91 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston were running every which way, combining for 178 yards on the ground. Peyton Thorne was right behind them, though, rushing for 15 carries for 57 yards. Even with this effort, Auburn was winning. But, and I mean a very big but, special teams cost them the game. Once again, with only a couple of minutes left in the fourth quarter, the punt returner muffed the punt. Jalen Milroe had a good game, though, of 16 of 24 passes, 289 yards with 2 interceptions. But that ain't all, folks. He also ran the ball 18 times for 107 yards, making him the leading rusher for this game. What a beast! Jermaine Burton was the leading receiver for the Crimson Tide, catching 4 receptions for 107 yards. Late in the ball game, it came down to an Alabama 4th and long. And what happened? Let's just say an Auburn quarterback might be out of a starting job. Alabama heaves a Hail Mary and wins the game in the corner of the end zone. Shaking my head. But last but not least, Florida and Florida State had an amazing game as well. Even without their leader, Florida State came out on top 24-15. Tate Rodemaker completed around 50% of his passes for 134 yards. Very average. However, Trey Benson pulled together and won the game for the Seminoles. He ran the ball 19 times for 95 yards and 3 touchdowns. What an absolute dog. Moving on to Florida, their offense was sputtering. Max Brown threw for 86 yards with 1 interception. Montrell Johnson did have a good game, rushing for 107 yards on 18 carries. Needless to say, the Seminoles pulled out a miracle. That's a wrap for this week's college football news. To stay up to date, make sure to check out my show every week to stay tuned into your favorite sports teams. I'm Keanu Smith, and this is Clutch Sports.